Maverick, Ford Bronco, and really the big question is Ford doomed or are they actually in a boom? Because it seems like everything across my YouTube feed is saying that Ford is doomed, finished, done, going bankrupt, the worst. The worst
Exaggeration on that?
the worst exaggeration is that Ford is going bankrupt. They're done. So we're going to discuss where this is coming from, why we're hearing this, and what the truth actually is. Because at Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, we make sure you don't get fooled. We also make sure you save thousands when buying your vehicle, shopping your vehicle, maintaining your vehicle as well, because ownership and maintenance done properly will save you thousands. So make sure in the comments section, remind me to talk about ceramic coatings today, because I got the question again today and I never jump on that opportunity to make an easy $2,000. I tell the truth, folks, and I tell the truth here on the show about honesty. I've got a beautiful woman beside me to impress me, and I already have my gold, my trophy in life, my treasure. So I don't need to try to get to the almighty make, $3,000-$4,000 on YouTube every month by spewing BS. So we'll get through some BS busting tonight, of course. We're going to be talking about recalls. We're also going to be talking about a huge issue here. A huge issue. And I think it's important that we need to talk about this. JD Power's association is basically telling you not to buy a Ford. More reason to think Ford's doomed when JD Power tells you not to buy a Ford. Watch out, better not buy it. And actually, even Consumer Reports is telling you not to buy a 2023 Ford F-150. It's on their not recommended list. They're telling you to avoid it. And let's talk about that and what it means. How serious is this? Let's talk about some facts. I've got some interesting stuff for you folks. And we'll also talk about changes for the 2024 Bronco, possible changes for the 2024 Ford Maverick, and of course, changes to the 2024 F-150, because folks, that's on a full model refresh. We're going to see some big changes there. Nice big changes. The Bronco, mid-model refresh, and Ford Maverick, not a mid-model refresh. So we'll talk about what that means. What can we expect? Do you hold out ordering now for your Maverick, or do you jump on? We'll talk all about that, delays and whatnot, and also some nice Mavericks that have come into the dealership and what's going on for delay times, hybrid delay times, EcoBoost. So let's get this show on the road. We know we're getting up in the viewership, so the intro's done. Everyone knows to not be here. Thank you very much for those that were here before 7, chatting in the group, Outsider Reviews. He's got a great channel. You want to check him out. Dwayne from Driven Wild Outdoors was chit-chatting before the 7 o'clock alarm clock for the show on Monday Night Live. So fantastic show. Check out Driven Wild Outdoors. Tim Bart's Long MacArthur Ford. So check out those shows. We also have Rev Nation that often stops in, and of course All Terrain Nation. We love Dave and Kelly over at All Terrain Nation. They're often here. So welcome to the show, folks. Monday Night Live. Let's get right into topic 1, episode 1. Do you want to introduce it, or shall I, honey?
Yeah, so it's the big title. Is Ford doom or heading for a boom? We want to know.
And of course, we're going to be talking data, so let's do it. So there's a lot of talk on YouTube these days. It's pretty simple. I can just head over to YouTube and put in, there's JCCR Adventures, our brother or sister channel. Is Ford doomed? I could probably put in is Ford going to be bankrupt, and there'd be things coming up. Now, Ford in crisis here. Ford is doomed, apparently, according to the Gear Gazette. A lot of anything with the word tech in it, or velocity, the real reason Ford stopped making cars. That's interesting. There's one title from someone that I generally really like watching, but I feel they might be embellishing a little or just confused, saying that Ford doesn't want to make Mavericks, and that's just not the case. Ford is making a ton of Mavericks. Ford had a record month in the month of May, making 11,051 Mavericks produced in the month of the month of May. It's the Maverick month, folks. The month of May, they made 11,051 produced Mavericks. Now 50% of capacity can be for hybrids. The remaining goes to EcoBoost, of course. Now 79% of people want a hybrid. Only 50% can be produced, but still that's a huge, like basically production of the hybrid has, if we go back to the original months, you could say has gone up 100-fold because they're making next to no hybrids at first. A little problem, most likely getting good quality batteries. They probably got batteries and then shipped them back. So that was a bit of a story. And back then I was saying, don't worry folks, Ford isn't doomed and you are going to get a Ford Maverick hybrid. Now from what I've been seeing coming into the dealership, if you want a hybrid, you're really lucky if your hybrid shows up in under a year. Our first hybrid did show up and that person had only waited a few months. They had ordered actually in it was ridiculous. They had ordered
just
in
after me, yes.
just after you, September,
2021.
and then they ended up getting it, what was it, basically like 2 months later, and it was, we couldn't understand it. But then after that, production and delivery of the hybrid just completely dried up. So there's a lot of worry that Ford was doomed because they weren't making these. Now there's worry that Ford is doomed because apparently they don't want to make Mavericks, and that's just not the case. The facts here is that Ford has one factory, not even for the Maverick. It's the Bronco Sport and the Maverick, and I said it last week, that kind of, going into this, when you're making a project, you can't just assume everything's going to be a huge success. If so, you pour tons of money into something, and if it's not a success, you completely burn your company. Speaking of burning the company, another reason a lot of YouTubers and journalists are saying that Ford is in a heck of a lot of trouble, that they're doomed, they're going bankrupt, is because of the $2 billion, $3 billion loss on the EV project. Now, EV, they've made their own division. Obviously, the gasoline division is profitable. The fleet division is profitable, and the EV division is at a complete loss. Now they split those into divisions because they now want to be able to really put pressure on the EV division to say you need to become profitable. So, the Mach-E F-150 Lightning in years to come, there's going to be less excess in wires, easier configurations, less build configurations, and that's just true for the Ford altogether, helping Ford probably move towards a boom, profitability, stock price increase, which the last week, Ford stock rose 5%. A little bit of evidence for a boom right there. And I had bought Ford, so I'm happy that I got that 5%. Cashed out, and will probably cash back in after I see how the next month in the stock market goes. But I think right now Ford is actually on a boom. Yes, they've lost billions. They're going to lose $3 billion this year on their EV division. They're going to make billions on fleet division, as well as the traditional Ford Blue Oval division, the gasoline division. They're going to make billions. They are going to lose money on electronic, the EV division, but they're going to be making money in a few years. It's 2023, folks, and they're going to be profitable with the EVs by 2025 or 2026, 2 to 3 years. And this isn't a coincidence. Blue Oval City is going to be up and running. That's 6 square miles of EV production, not just assembly. They're going to be making batteries, recycling batteries. They're going to be zero net carbon, so I guess they'll be making their own electricity. They're going to be reusing scraps when they cut things up. So it's going to be very advanced 6 square miles. There'll be thousands of jobs produced in the USA. So why YouTubers want to destroy Ford and do everything they can to discourage you from buying a Ford is beyond me. Ford,
just to have some views, like always. Because they just create the Maverick, and why did they don't want to make it anymore? It makes no sense.
What happens?
They just created it.
Yeah, they just created it, but they didn't know in advance if it was going to be a huge success. And some people say, "Oh, that's stupid." Of course they knew. No, they didn't know. You look at the Honda Ridgeline, and for the last over a decade, they sold roughly 30,000 units per year. You look at the Toyota Tacoma selling 200,000 units per year, but then you have the Ranger that they had to cut out because in 2011 sales weren't that great, and it needed about $8 billion into it to really modernize it, to make it, quality, good enough for us. So Ford cut it out. They invested the money in the F-150 quality, and new technology, new frame technology, new powertrain technology. The F-150 sales went through the roof because they're just offering a great product. They brought the Ranger back and kind of borrowed from Europe. Now they've properly invested in the Ranger. The 2024 Ranger, I think, is a 2 thumbs up, huge buy recommendation on my part, and I think it's going to be a good competitor to the Tacoma. I think it's going to be probably second place, but a good second place. And I prefer it over the Tacoma. I have news about that later on, a little bit of Ford Ranger news, but I really think Ford is actually going towards a boom. Velocity, you're wrong. They're not doomed. Car questions answered. Ford, you're wrong when you say that Ford doesn't want to make Mavericks. They've increased production dramatically, but they still have to deal with the fact that they have one factory, and the F-150 has 2 huge factories that have been running for decades. So when you turn on the water valves of production, the valves of production, you have 2 huge factories that have been producing these for decades at an incredible rate. Yes, there are F-150s available in yards, because they can make a million of them a year. Each factory can make like 500,000 F-150s. And the Maverick factory can make about 300,000 units per year. And they've got to divide that between the Maverick and the Ford Bronco Sport, which is still a popular vehicle. And surprisingly, I've done a review on it. And I started off the review kind of saying, well, my personal thoughts prior, the 1.5 won't be enough. The 1.5 was enough, and the 2-liter turbo is an absolute blast. Just took another test drive in a Bronco Sport Badlands today. My parents own one, but I didn't go around, beating my parents' vehicle. I went out for a test drive and loved the 2-liter turbo. 250 horsepower, 277 pound-feet of glorious torque on a 3,500-pound unit. Thing goes great. The power to rate ratio is fantastic. So Ford is in for a huge boom. That's what's going on. And I've got actual numbers. I say that I always try to, always want to have data, not just, kind of a blindly trust me. So let's get to this through here. Here's some data. Ford, number 1 ranked by, volume share. In the first quarter of 2023, number 1 in sales. In second place, Toyota. So Ford, 12.5% of the market. Toyota, 11.8% of the market. Now, are retail sales slowing down a little? Yes, retail sales, there's less, hunger towards the prices. That's good, and I'll explain why in a moment. Ford, in the meantime, has compensated that with fleet sales. And here's my market outlook. You can only compensate slowing down retail sales with, pumping more towards the fleet. You can only do that for a certain amount of time. Once fleet actually has the vehicles they've been clamoring for and deserve to get, you don't want both fleet begging for vehicles and retail begging for vehicles, because what happens? That's basically what these YouTubers are saying. Well, customers aren't begging and dying and breaking down the doors and paying way over MSRP anymore, so Ford's doomed. No, folks, we're going back to normal. Yeah, there you go.
Finally!
I didn't even tell you what this show was going to be about until 15 minutes before, and you can figure it out on your own from what I'm saying. So I don't understand why so many YouTubers can't just see the simple truth that we're going back to normal. And the good news is normal doesn't mean that there'll be, full yards and we're going to have still very high interest and high prices and over MSRP, but that there'll then be units available. No, that's not normal. Normal is going back to reasonable interest rates, some rebates, and available vehicles to actually choose when you walk in the lot, which is your preferred method of shopping.
Totally. It's easier and you know how long you will wait. When it's available, you can have it right now. I like that.
And
yeah, I'm happy that things are going back to normal. We cannot stay like that forever. It's too much crazy with the MSRP and the interest rate. It's not normal.
I can definitely see in 2023 that Ford has when it comes to marketing know-how, they've got the brains. I'm very impressed. I saw Ford this month have, in my area, there's a $3,000 rebate only on a lease. But with, let's say an F-150, like 7% interest rate. And then if you went and purchased, there's no rebate, but 1.99% interest. So Ford's seeing what's going to move units. They're testing. And then they learned that, okay, well, not a whole lot of people want to take the lease when the interest rate's at 7%, which really, comparatively speaking, isn't that bad. The overall market is around 10%. And I say around 10% because used interest rate is higher than new. Canada versus US, different interest rates, but it's around 10. But new interest rate is at 11 in the United States and 13 for used vehicles, whereas here in Canada, it's the new is, high nines, and the used is 10, 11%, 11 or 12%. I don't have the exact data in front of me this time, but different interest rates, different countries. But basically you could say the average new rate across the two countries is 10%. Now Ford did this test and immediately corrected. Throughout the month of June, they've seen that not a whole lot of F-150s have been getting leased and people have been jumping on that lower interest of the purchase. So what has Ford done? Well, starting tomorrow, they're going to drop the interest rate by 2%.
Wow.
And they're going to increase the rebate. So if my recollection is good, rebate is going to $5,000 and there's a 2% decrease in interest rate. I think that probably is the sweet spot. If you offer, let's say 4.99 interest, so the interest isn't great, but it's not horrible either. It's that's not that bad. And you're getting a nice $5,000 rebate. Well, I think you're making the most amount of people happy. The rebate seekers are happy, as well as the people looking for good interest. And remember, with a lease with Ford, you can do what is called, here's a trick to save thousands. You can do what is called a multiple deposit. It's essentially like loaning money to Ford, and it'll drop the interest up to 1.5%. So you can have a 1.5% interest rate reduction. Your sales consultant, if they know what they're doing, they're going to understand this, and they will immediately be able to tell you exactly how much interest you save. And if they can't, well, you'll see it in your price. Your monthly is going to go down. You do the math. If you're on a 48-month lease, you see that you're saving, let's say, $25 times 48 months. Well, 2% on an F-150, you're going to save about $3,000 if you give roughly, it's advancing 10 monthly payments. So let's say roughly $10,000. You get to save $3,000 over the course of the loan, and the money is guaranteed to come back to you. If you have an accident, if it gets stolen, if you change brands because whatever, you fall in love with a Jeep 4xe, whatever it may be, you will get your money back as soon as your name isn't on those registration. So very good to know. But be careful. If you trade in at another dealership and they get your amount owing, well, your amount owing is going to include your multiple deposit. So it might seem like it's a great time to trade because, you're not upside down. You're not refinancing negative equity. But you have to remember that amount financing, the salesperson probably isn't experienced enough, likely to know that amount the remaining amount to clear the loan is including that money you advanced at the beginning. So if they're really good, they're going to say, well, this is your amount owing with your 10,000 in there. If I give you back your 10,000, well, your amount owing is $10,000 more. And in which case, let's say you then owe 50, but your trade's 40. A good sales consultant will tell you, well, you owe 50 and your vehicle's worth 40. A bad, either dumb or dishonest, one of the dangerous D's, the 3D, the double D danger. If they're dumb or dangerous, well, if they're dangerous, they're just going to deliberately tell you, hey, you owe, your amount owing is, well, they'll just lie. They'll say your vehicle's worth 50 and you owe 50, life is good, you're break even, and hope you've forgotten about your 10,000 that you gave back. Or a lot of people just assume, oh, well, Ford will give me back my 10. And then you're waiting around, you have your new vehicle, a few months would go by, or a few weeks, you call up Ford and Ford's like, well, no, your amount owing included, your amount left to pay off included that $10,000 you gave on a multiple deposit. So there can be a bit of dangerous confusion with there, but Ford not doomed. I think Ford is heading for a boom. They've got They've got a partnership with Google that I think will be very interesting. They've got technology in regards to faster charging coming along. And they also have some new battery technology in regards to lithium phosphate iron batteries, which will charge at basically full speed from 0% all the way to 100%. I think making plugins with, medium-sized batteries, let's say 20 kilowatt batteries, I think that would be the sweet spot and be the best vehicle powertrain option on the market. Let me know in the comments section. Are you all in on gas, all in on EVs, or do you think plug-in is the way to go? And if you say why, well, then you're just giving us some bonus intel. Love it when people explain their thought process. So let us know in the comments section. Now, episode 2. I'll let you introduce episode 2 while I clear my throat.
Yeah, for this one, we'll talk about the news about the 2024 Ford Bronco, and we'll add some information about the Maverick, because we love that.
Now, you think you had made a Bronco only folder. Could that be?
Yeah, it's just right there.
All right. So, Ford Bronco, get these slides going. Episode 2, let's talk about the 2024 Ford Bronco, folks. Here we go. And Marie, what else are we going to talk about right now in this episode?
The Ford Maverick too, I guess.
Yes, we will. So, 2024 Ford Bronco, what can we expect? What do I want? What do our Bronco people want? And what does Ford want? Well, I'll start with what Ford wants, and this is part of why they're going to be on a boom. So if you're not watching this live and you're watching this as a replay, check our episode on Ford boom, or, is Ford doomed, or are they headed for a boom? Part of Ford's secret sauce to success, you could say, is that they're going to be cutting back on the amount of configurations you can have. So less configurations. That means for the F-150, we're going to cut down configurations greatly. So a little bit ADD. So if you change those slides quickly, my attention's going to be out the door like a squared squirrel.
I'll let you change the slides.
No worries. Just not every 10 seconds. So, Ford is headed for a boom. They're going to cut back on the available options. We can see it already with the Ford Ranger Raptor. You go on the Ford Ranger Raptor and essentially it's like, well, here's your Raptor, pick your mags, pick your color, have a nice day. Feels like Toyota, but I actually liked it. I actually like it. I don't want to spoil anything here, but F-150, and that's what they're going to be doing. Bronco. Don't worry, they're not cutting back all the different models. We know there's too many. I think as Bronco owners and shoppers, a lot of us feel that there's way too many options when it comes to the Bronco. But within categories, you could say, the goal overall at Ford is to have, let's say you jump into the Badlands trim. Well, Badlands will be more of a pick your color, less of the ongoing nonstop options unless they're add-ons, which will often get done not in the factory but on a side factory. And when it gets, sent off to, the side factory, they can add accessories. They're fine with the accessories, but it's about cutting back on configurations. However, Ford will continue to make, decent money and also bring back excitement, pump up excitement for models by having specialty models. And that's something actually Dodge, it's a bit of a swear word in the home here, but Dodge does a really good job of that. They'll have a let's say that we're talking about the Dodge Challenger. There's so many editions for that. If one day they come out with a honeybee edition or a horny bee edition or any type of bee edition, I wouldn't be surprised. They could go through, if they feel like it, I wouldn't even be surprised if they went through the name of every type of bumblebee, hornet, a ground wasp. They just have all these editions, but it gets people to buy. So who cares if it seems a little silly calling something, a hornet or a honeybee or whatever it may be. They're good at it, and it gets people to buy, and it gets, from the outside. If you're not a Dodge guy, let's say you're traditionally a Mercedes guy, you'll look at that and you're like, look at those silly colors they have this year. Look at those silly additions. What a bunch of goofballs over there. Cousin-loving goofballs. But it works. And if you're a Mopar fan, you'll switch up your 1-year-old, Challenger or your 1-year-old Wrangler, and you'll switch to get that new color or that new power, limited time powertrain. So I think I think it's a great idea. And the WB is bringing a great point up. He's like, well, lots of options on the Bronco. What about the F-150? Yes, you're absolutely right. And all those options confuse people. Like, we want it simple. So a lot of people are just saying, yeah, it's great that you can now shop for a Ford Ranger in a much simpler manner, but we still wanted the opening roof. We still want options, just not an endless list of options just when you go in on, an XLT. Now the Bronco, what can we actually expect for 2024? Let's get to the meat of this, the exciting part. So if I was putting you to sleep, good call, that was the great time. If I'm putting you to sleep and here, now's the time to wake up and get in on the show, turn up the volume. There is a lot of talk about the 2024 Bronco, and that's fair. It's a mid-model refresh, which a lot of people confuse for new model. The new model is probably for 2030, and that's when we are going to see major changes. So will we have a Bronco Lightning? So let's get to that slide. A little Bronco Lightning here. Channel made a little mock-up of what a Bronco Lightning could look like. So are we going to get a Bronco Lightning for 2024? That requires a new platform. And the Explorer, not surprisingly, is coming in on a new platform. So I wouldn't be surprised if when the Explorer comes out with a new platform, and we are talking about an EV Explorer coming up soon, I'd say that's probably the year, either that year or within a couple of years after the release of an all-electric Explorer, when we can expect that platform to also be shared with the Bronco. So I'd be surprised if we get a 2024 Bronco that is all electric. If you're waiting for an all electric Bronco because you're like, well, I don't want to buy a 23 Bronco if all of a sudden the 24 is going to come out with something wildly different. I'm not expecting anything wildly different. Someone's got to make those batteries. I'm thinking more 2025, and it'd be weird to have 2 mid-model refreshes within a production. But remember, the Bronco announced in, what was it, 2021 or was it 2020? It was summer 20...
The first year?
Yeah, it was summer 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it takes a long time before you had yours, and it was a 2021. So I guess some people will have a 2020.
Summer 2020, they announced the Bronco, and now for 2024, we're getting a refresh. Blue Oval City is going to be up and running, 6 square miles of, development towards everything that's electric. I wouldn't be surprised if that's when we get our, 2025 or 2026, because of course that factory is going to be focused on pumping out Lightnings if they're still, really popular. So I think that we're probably still a couple years away from a Lightning. So my recommendation is you've got time to buy a Bronco now and switch it in for a Lightning Bronco if that's something you would like. I'd love it in the comments section, either in the live or if you're watching this after the live as its own standalone episode, put it on pause, add in a comment about what you think about an electric Bronco. Does that appeal to you? And not without any of the fear of, well, if we like electric Broncos, enough people buy them that they'll just cut out the gas. They're not going to cut out the gas. That's where they're making money. They need the petrol-powered profit makers. So let's call them what they are. They're petrol-powered profit makers. They need them. Ford needs them to survive. They need them to be in a boom. They need them so that stock price goes up. And let's face it, that's Jim Farley's job, to make stock prices go up. So we can expect a Lightning out of the Bronco. Jim Farley said that pretty much all the icons would get electrified. But I'd say before we get an all-electric Bronco, I wouldn't be surprised if for 2024 on the mid-model refresh, I'd love to see a plug-in. Now, will it come on the 2.7 liter or will it come on the 2.3 engine? So here's the 2.3 behind us. Zoom in on that. A lot going on there, lots of wires, lots of tubing, but that's just a modern engine these days. And the 2.3 is a good engine. You're pulling 3,500 pounds. I'd love to see some modifications get done to the back end for the 2024 model so that this can tow more, because let's remember the Jeep Wrangler, if you get a Rubicon, you can now pull 5,000 pounds. And I think in regards to towing, Jeep Wrangler, right, as of 2024, if you get the Rubicon, it's winning. If you're someone who needs to pull more than 3,500 pounds, the Bronco by default gets pushed out. If you've got a small camper, well, not a small camper, if you have a medium-sized camper, you're not getting a Bronco and you're going to get a Wrangler or a truck. So I think that's something Ford can work on, but mid-model refreshes usually don't have major significant mechanical changes.
Like you said, they don't have the time to change the platform, so for sure it won't be major.
Mind you, if they can modify the suspension and make it happen, it's something that I think a lot of us Bronco owners would like to see. So Ford, if you're watching, take note. We'd love the Bronco to pull 5,000 pounds or more. Heck, if it pulls 7,000 pounds on an option that can be ordered, even if it's a couple $1,000s, some people are going to be very happy to get that. And it'll be a piece of, bragging right against any Jeep owners that decide to get, mouthy. It's just joking because sometimes, whether it's a family get together or just, talking over a beer at the bar.
And you know what? If Ford is watching, I want cyber orange color back, please.
And that's actually something that could happen. So let's talk about colors. The mid-model refresh will probably have us see 2 to maximum 4 colors disappear, replaced by 2 to a maximum of 4 colors. We could
Maybe
have
purple?
all the current colors plus 2 new ones, but I'd be very, very surprised just seeing if you're writing on me when I'm not looking. So that's what's going on there. Now, this one channel, I'm not going to say who they are, but they're saying the 2.3 liter is far more reliable, but problems were reported with the turbo wastegate. The 2.3 liter is not way more reliable than the 2.7 liter, folks. I'm BS busting that. That is a myth. There is some, there's always there's often truth to, most of what everyone says, but it doesn't mean that the individual has come to a good conclusion, because the actual data is that there's roughly 50 blown 2.7 liters total in existence because of a valve train problem that, rattled loose, broke things up, had the piston meet up with the top of the motor. So not that great, but it was 50 of them. and it was bad valve train parts. It's resolved. It's not an issue anymore. The 2.7 liter is extremely reliable. It's even reliable at 104 miles per hour, driven over, while Marie is asleep. Pre-pregnancy. I wouldn't do that anymore, folks. Would not take the chance of having, well, there was no chance to have an accident.
Yeah.
I had to follow traffic.
Not in New Jersey. If you follow the traffic, it's too fast.
No, New Jersey, you have to go 150 miles per hour to follow some of that traffic. It is a wild jungle out there.
That was crazy.
So this channel is saying there are many instances where the 2.7 liter unexpectedly fails. False. BS. Let's bust that. Let's not fall just because, appeal to popularity, the popularity appeal. Can't remember what it is in Latin. And that's fine because no one argues law in Latin anymore. But in logic classes, hey, it's something to remember for a test. But anywho, appealing to, the populace, appealing to popularity, the appeal to majority, is its proper name. The appeal to majority is when you make an appeal saying, well, most people think this, so it's true. And then appeal to, in this case, it'd be, well, this video has, let's say 250,000 views, so it must be correct. Not correct one bit. Now, if you actually like facts and not being lied to so that, I can eat more steak, please hit the thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. If you already are subscribed, don't hit it because you'll unsubscribe. But if you haven't hit the subscribe button, folks, please hit that and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on at least seeing what we're talking about. So then you can decide, you know what, I want to know more about the Bronco. Let's go click on that. So that's part of what's going on for the Bronco. Now, we'd love to see a 2.7 plug-in. I highly doubt it's going to be thrown onto the 2.7 liter because likely it's going to be for both the Ford Ranger and the Bronco. And what happens in both instances, if you throw on a plug-in unit to the 2.7 liter, so add an electric motor to the 2.7 liter V6, it's going to be better than the 3 liter. So how's that going to be for people who've paid money for a Ford Ranger Raptor? They're not going to be that happy. How's that going to be for people who've paid money for a Ford Bronco Raptor? Not good. You don't want to pay 117,000 Canadian dollars on a Ford Bronco Raptor to then get completely blown out of the water by a 2.7 liter with electric motor and battery. Because really, the 2.7 liter is already, we've lived it, really powerful, right? Mm-hmm. You love hitting that pedal?
Yeah,
right to the metal?
It was fun.
It was
Even
fun.
if we had big tires, it goes very well.
And if you add an electric motor, you're going to throw on an extra 100 pound-feet of torque. And you're going to be breaking into the 500 pound-feet of torque range. And yes, folks, that would be amazing. But that's it kind of just makes it so people will go, well, why Raptor? Or why Ranger? I know, just Ranger Raptor. Why would you go up to those trims? Why would you pay extra money? Ford makes money on those units, and you can't destroy your fan base and your clientele that have bought those motors. So it's going to go on the 2.3 liter. It is, I'm confident it's coming. I don't have any internal confirmations because Ford will want to let journalists know first. Then they'll kind of unveil it possibly at, special events for the dealerships. Sometimes they let actually owners of dealerships know months before journalists, but sometimes in Las Vegas, somebody gets drunk and ruins it for everyone. If you're watching, dealer, you know who you are, which dealer that did that for the Bronco, unveiling it must have been 6 or 8 months earlier, kind of throwing off the whole timeline and messing everything up for Ford and dealers. Well, thanks for messing that up, because now Ford, of course, is a little, more cautious in giving dealers advanced information. But with the Ranger, they made sure that they told us that we would get a 2.7 liter, and they're like, don't promise it to anyone. So I kind of used it as hey, I have a feeling this could happen. because my goal was that I don't want to see people who are like, oh man, I really love the look of that new Ranger, but it's only going to come with a 2.3 liter, so I'm going to go buy a Colorado or whatever, even though they're on 4 cylinders. But then I'm going to go buy a Tacoma. By the way, the Tacoma no longer comes with a V6. Shame on you, Toyota. Bad idea. Jeep, Stellantis, Jeep Wranglers, you can get rid of your V6. I don't like that V6. It's a proven, relatively reliable powertrain, but it's not very fun to drive, and it doesn't sound amazing, and it doesn't return, amazing miles per gallon. The miles per gallon are low on that engine, and the miles per gallon are relatively high for the lack of miles per gallon. It's got a very bad ratio, miles per gallon to miles per gallon. So Jeep can get rid of that V6, but Tacoma got rid of it. So anyways, I was kind of, never promising it to anyone, never unveiling it, even though I knew it was coming along. I wasn't like, the new Ford 2024 Ford Ranger is going to get a 2.7 liter V6. I could have said it a good year ago, but I don't want to ever break Ford's trust. And my only goal was just to keep sales from bleeding away into V6s that aren't really even that great. The Tacoma's V6 takes up a lot of, the 2023 V6 takes up a lot of gas, not that powerful, but a very, very reliable unit. Now, it had a bad reputation at first because of little kinks that needed to be worked out in its first year of production. But after that, as of year 4 or 5, it's easily we can say a very reliable and fantastic engine. Now, continue to stay tuned. We're going to be talking about how JD Powers and Consumer Reports says that Ford is, basically they're saying don't buy a Ford, and that, that could make you think Ford is doomed. We're going to go back to their original title in episode 3 because we're talking about recalls. So that's when I've decided to save that interesting tidbit of information. So I don't know when. I can't promise you we're going to get a 2024 Ford Bronco plug-in. If I knew 100%, the way I would probably not tell you is I'd probably say, hey, I think I'm going to wait for a 2024 Ford Bronco. And right now, I really don't know what to do. I've got my 2023 Wildtrak in production. The computer system said the 21st, that it would get produced around, the end of June. I think it was the 28th. Anyways, it's gone in on the 12th, meaning I should probably have it by mid-July. Mind you, there is some shipping issues, a little cargo issues going on with the train, so that could put on a little delay. I've got a little story with that, but essentially, I'll just recommend you to go read it on Ford Authority, that there could be some delays with cargo for delivery. So check out and read that story on Ford Authority. So I don't expect the plug-in for the 2.7 liter. I do expect it for the 2.3 liter, but I do not know. I think it'd make sense and be really cool if it comes for the 2024, but I also see the marketing value, because the 2024, what we are going to get are a little bit modifications to the grills, a little bit of modification, and these are all what I'm saying to be very likely. Very likely modifications to the grille, very likely modification to the lights. Miracle case, we get higher towing, but I'd also be very surprised if that's something more when they change the platform, unless they just put in the work, if the suspension can just be modified. But I'd be surprised that's something we'd get for 24. This channel also said, plagued by problems. We had 2 Broncos. They were fantastic. Not plagued by problems at all, other than, what I've already covered on the channel. Inside door, a little bit of missing paint, back, behind the plastic. Took off the plastic where you add accessories, and, that wasn't painted. So just minor things that weren't a big issue. Mm-hmm. Our top that, came off because of the plastic, soft top, foldable, section in the back. We got metal clips. You can check rivets. You can check that out. It looked better afterwards. Anyways, so 2024 Bronco, what would you like to see on it, Marie?
I don't know. I thought it was already perfect, but yeah, it's always place to
You've talked
have
some
better
bumpers. We've talked bumpers before.
Yeah.
And we're likely, this is a huge success. So the modifications are going to be minor, kind of like when we saw the 2017 Mustang turn into the 2018 Mustang. The modifications weren't huge, but they made the hood a little longer, extended it out, slanted it down, and even with minor modifications, some people are like, I really don't like the new model. So Ford doesn't, they want to keep it fresh. They want to get people back, really interested in talking about the product. So I think what we can really expect are, a little bit of changes when it comes to bumpers, grille, and lights. Mm-hmm. Those would be the big ones, folks. Maybe a plug-in, but I think there's marketing value to bringing that after the refresh. So you have all the excitement on the refresh, you get people to switch, and then 1 or 2 years later, you're like, hey, here's your plug-in. And you get people to switch again for that. And I would switch. If I get a 2023 Wild Track, if I'm able to switch in my Lightning, which dropped in value much more than expected, but if I can switch my Lightning, if I can switch my Lightning for the Wild Track, I can say if they come out in 2024 with a plug-in, I'm going to want it. Because look at the Jeep. Jeep has 470 pound-feet of torque on the 2-liter turbo with plug-in. They're 4xe. The 2-liter turbo without the plug-in, it's enough to get the job done. I actually like it a little bit more than the 6-cylinder, but I'm not that fond of the 6-cylinder. And then the 2-liter I find is okay, and the plug-in with 470 pound-feet of torque is fantastic. It's a fantastic option, and you get about 20 to 25 miles of autonomy. So you could go to work 100% electric. Mm-hmm. I could go to work 100% electric and make it halfway home when the weather is decent. Yeah. Unless I were to plug in at work. So it's a pretty cool option. And boy, have we ever loved the Bronco. So just probably slight modification to the bumper here. Slight modification to the grille options.
Yeah, the bumper, you want it fuller?
Well, this is the steel bumper. The plastic bumper is very full, but maybe they'll offer, maybe the base bumper will be a little more capable, but still being light, but just maybe they won't be made of, the same plastic. They're going to change the look of it, is really what I am very much expecting. So I know you're wanting to have the return of the orange. We will have new colors.
That's the only thing I ask for.
Currently 11 colors. Will they kick it up to 13? Maybe, but often with Ford, they'll often stick with the same number of colors, but then they'll just remove 2 and add 2. And usually the ones they remove are the ones that you can say are the non-traditional Ford colors. So we'll still have silver. We're still going to have the dark gray metallic. White and black will always be there. They'll always be, race red or a red. But things like hot pepper red, those are often colors that only last for a few years. Anything
That's
like...
sad because you loved it very much.
The blue will probably continue to stay, but, we know that antimatter blue had disappeared. That's the blue that's almost black. Maybe they'll bring in, Atlas or...
Yeah, because the Velocity blue is there to stay because we see it on F-150s. You had a Mustang that was almost the same. So it's the Escape 2. It's on every model.
Yeah, when a color is on multiple models, it's often a color that once it makes it to a model, you could say it's safe. When a color isn't on multiple models, like Cyber Orange, not safe. And here's the thing, our green that we love, very sad because Eruption Green is absolutely gorgeous in the sun. It has an incredible bronze to it, and that's a color that might not stay because you look at other models, the Explorer, when they
didn't have that on it.
That's right. When other models have a green, they're naming it something else, and it's either a little lighter, a little darker, doesn't have bronze flake. They're playing around with the recipe, and Ford is showing us that Eruption Green is not a Ford traditional color. So keep that in mind. If we wait for a 24,
we're lucky because Area 51 and Cactus Gray, we see it on Rangers and other stuff. So maybe these one will stay.
I'd like to see the back bumper I just would like to see all the bumpers be made of steel, but there's a cost to that, so I'd be surprised. But I would definitely like to see the back bumper to be optional in metal. And I'd also like to see Jeep has a winch option that you can add, and it's not that expensive. It's about $3,000 or $3,500 US to have a steel bumper in the front with a winch. I think that's a great value. I'd like to see Ford offer from factory steel bumper with winch. I'd really like to see that out of Ford. That's my biggest request. I also think this isn't going to happen, but I also think it'd be really cool if you could have a package that's called like an off-road package, the off-road illegal package. So you get to play around with your front light color from inside the vehicle, because that's not legal. It's not
Yeah,
legal.
it won't happen because of that.
Yeah, in Canada, for example, and I'm sure it's the same in the States, the law is written. You have to have your front lights this color. Mm-hmm. It'd be great when you're off-road,
You're
of
not a
course,
Christmas
only when
tree
you're
on the road.
off-road that you can have, red lights, yellow lights. People in the Bronco community are modifying their Broncos to have colored lights. Let's have it right from factory. But Ford can put their little warning when you click on it, just like the exhaust on the Mustangs or the exhaust on the Ford Bronco Raptor. You hit a button, but you're like, I want the off-road, and they're like, this is only for off-road use because it's illegal to open it up and be that loud on the main roads, the public roads. Let's do this for the lights as well.
Could be like the track mode on the Mustang.
I'm getting hot and excited talking about all this Bronco stuff. I'd like a Bronco.
So you miss the Bronco
An electric
a lot.
Bronco. I miss the Bronco a lot, and I would definitely be into an electric Bronco, because while I miss the Bronco, I miss the look, the size. I miss our little off-road adventures.
Easy to park. Not the same as the
Incredible
F-150.
turning radius, super comfortable. Average sound system. The Lightning has an incredible sound system. However, I do like going to work. I like filling up at home. My house is a gas station, is a fuel station, but my fuel is electricity. I go from, at the end of the week, I'm at a half tank, and it costs me about $1.50 to go from a half tank batteries being half charged to full charge for about $1.50. It's a joke. I'm spending $1.50 to commute back and forth to work. And if on the weekend we go crazy and we completely empty it, well, then, which we have, when we went to the cottage. Yeah, okay. So I plug it in, it's $3 later. I can go out and do another, 350 miles.
And you're stuck in the traffic. You say, I don't care. It's electric.
Yeah. And that's one thing. People are like, oh, but what happens if with your F-150 or your electric vehicle, you're stuck in a snowstorm? Great, I can be there for days. And if I've got, in my front trunk, if I've kept a toaster and a kettle and, some, a freezer, heck, I can have all those things plugged in, and I can just pop out of my little freezer. Well, if it's winter anyways, I can have it in the bed if I've got a bed cover, and I could have, a week's worth of, a month's, 3 months worth of groceries, and I could live in my truck for many, many days. I could be making toast, which I don't eat bread, but anyways, you can have a toaster oven there, folks. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for keeping me on track. Now,
You want to go back to the other folder?
anyways, this channel that was saying that the 2.7 liter hasn't been reliable, and many engines have blown. Many people have had engine failure. Also was saying that the new 2024 Bronco will probably come with new tie rod ends. Now this is a big old tie rod end, right, folks? So they're saying it's going to come probably with new tie rod ends because a lot of the tie rod ends have broken. Okay, yes, a lot. We've seen a lot of tie rod ends break off-road. But it's just comical that the same channel that's saying that the 2.7 liter is highly unreliable, with many people being faced with blown engines, is calling this a tie rod end. The sentence lets you know how stupid you are. And this time I am being mean to this channel because it's just AI generated anyway. So robots go, robots aren't going to cry. So this, robot generated profit making machine of a channel is saying like, oh, they'll probably change the tie rod end. That is not a tie rod end. The name of the part lets you know where you're going to find it. It's that, it's an end piece. Tie rod end. This is a bar that, crosses the vehicle. So interesting channel. Can't YouTube. Often saying like Ford's announcement shocks the entire car industry. This is illegal. They will regret this. It's getting ugly for GM and Ford. Ford is finished in Europe. Okay, well, sure. Actually, the Kuga is really popular in Europe. So yeah, it's tough. YouTube itself and what makes money on YouTube sometimes makes me want to quit, but then I remember I don't have to make money with this as long as I'm enjoying spending the time with my community, and you guys actually have been pretty awesome. I forgot to have the picture here, but I had proof data just to say thank you so much, everyone. You don't know this, but we've made it to 4 million views on the channel.
Wow.
And 12,000 subscribers. And that's very, very generous of the community because sometimes
thank you all.
I go on for long rants. I get on a soapbox. I get on my, political standing box.
Speaking about steaks and bacon.
I get on talking about steaks and bacon.
Not always speaking about cars.
Not always talking about cars, and you guys are very supportive. You're a wonderful community, and I want to invite you all. Please respond if you're interested. Do respond to the little questionnaire I sent out, the poll. Do you want to go up Mount Washington, have a little meet and greet? We'll be at the bottom around 12:15, and then we'll get up to the top. So we should be up at the top around 1. And there's restaurants and whatnot up there. So we can either have picnics in our cars.
A little dinner.
We can
lunch.
go have, if it's the 25th, if you vote the 25th, this Saturday, well, they're having a seafood spectacular event.
But you need to buy a ticket if you want to go there.
If you want the seafood, you have to buy the ticket in advance. So we could go up there, have a wonderful lunch, get up to the top, eat, and then after eating, take all our photos, chat while we eat, chat while we take photos, and then drive down a little bit later. So let us know in the poll. Vote if you are pretty sure you're going to come. Because we don't want, let's say everyone voting on a certain date, and then we book it that way because we really like seafood. So we're kind of hoping everyone votes for the 25th. If but you can't. Oh my, you're pregnant. You can't have seafood.
No, anyway, I saw it's a course with the chiefs, and so it's not to sit on the table and eat.
Oh, okay.
It's totally different.
Okay. Well, if you can't have seafood,
You just
I don't know if I
remind
eat
the
seafood in front of
seafood
you.
word because I said it.
All right.
Johnny
Now,
loves seafood.
the community is fantastic, and here's an example. I wasn't sure if they wanted me to show if they were comfortable with me showing their name, but they actually, in the comments section, gave us all a fantastic template on how to make sure you have a COVP order. So why don't we just make this into a little quick 2-minute episode before we talk about JD Power and Consumer Reports basically saying that, almost saying it's game over for Ford, Consumer Reports saying not to buy Ford, JD Power, and I will explain how JD Power does things because I've got some really pertinent information that will help you sleep better, or maybe just help you not, maybe you wouldn't have bought a Ford anytime soon because of that information. And I'm going to cover that. But first of all, these days you need to COVP your order. So here's an episode, how to COVP your order. So thank you very much. We've got a fantastic auto community here at Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. And at Ford, if you make an order, you need to COVP to protect your price, to make sure it actually gets in, maybe even ever, or in a more timely fashion. So you get it much faster if you COVP. It'll protect your price. It'll protect your interest rate. You need to know this, folks, and there's an order. You need to know what protections to actually, what proofs to get so you're protected. Let me say the biggest part of this, the number one thing is make sure you walk away with the dealership's signature that shows the current price and the interest rate. They sign, you get a copy. That is your biggest protection for when the vehicle gets in. Now, try to get COVP as soon as possible. If you want a 2024 Ford Maverick, even if you get COVP'd on the 2023 price and you get, obviously at this point, you're not getting a 23, you will get a 24, but at least if you get them to sign for a 23, that if it magically came in as a 23, you get that current interest rate and price. It's probably going to be a whole lot easier getting them to then sign when it gets converted to a 2024. It'll be pretty easy to get them to sign that. So get COVP'd as soon as possible. Now, this is a great template. So here's the thing. They're saying basically, let's say for 2024, you'd want an all-wheel drive hybrid Maverick. It might happen, but I'd be surprised at this point because they're not on their mid-model refresh. But you can put it, always add it in writing, right on the purchase offer or lease offer or build sheet that they would then need to, in writing or type up saying that, you know, they're going to protect that price and protect that interest rate. Howdy ho, Ford video guy. Thank you very much for joining. So you can always add the note that for 2024, if the all-wheel drive hybrid is available, that's what you want. In case they just decided to, you know, take your 2023 conversion and just in the system try to modify it and reuse your driver's license. And I don't know what they do for your signature, but things happen. But it is best to put it in writing so they at least have, they're reminded of it. You might forget, they might forget, you might say it later on, they might, you know, forget it. If it's written, it's hard to miss. So write what you want, ideally, for the 2024, which we don't know yet for the Maverick, what that's going to be, or for the Bronco. So write kind of your Christmas list. Write what your current color that you want is. If you want Cyber Orange as a 2024, you could write, if Cyber Orange is available, that's what I want.
A little wish list.
If there are any selected accessories, really try not to take any accessories. They very well might hold you back. So, you know, bed covers, roll up, fold up, bed liners, mud flaps, interior cargo mats, all those accessories, try to avoid them. Get them from your Ford store parts department, or if you like getting stuff on Amazon, well, go to one of our episode descriptions where we have an Amazon affiliate link. You'll pay the same price. Amazon will be forced to send us a bit of money, so it'll help us out. We really appreciate that.
And is the itch still on that list of accessories that you better not pick now?
I showed the sheet in a recent episode, and I will do, I'm already editing, I'm about to be done a current Maverick episode on things to consider avoiding. So we'll leave that for, you'll have to hit the bell notification and subscribe, folks, because if you do have the bell notification and you're subscribed, well, then you're definitely will not miss our episode coming up on what to have and what not to have on your Maverick order when, you know, to help get you ready for this 2024 ordering experience. Now, if you want to look up the date, we've got the date here, Marie, on our sheets highlighted in yellow. If you want to look at that while I just cover one more note. Now, once this is done, once you've, you know, built and you've got your build sheet with your dealer, you sign it, get them to sign it, keep a copy. And from there, you're going to want to follow the Ford's customer order verification process and ask them so that, you know, you make sure that they are going to COVP, say, will you COVP this? And that way you're going to get a confirmation email from Ford. But when they go into Webdo, they'll also be able to generate a sheet that proves that they ordered it. Ask them for that as well. Ask your dealership for that sheet so you know that they didn't just take your order, put it on the desk, and, you know, it falls on the floor, gets covered by another stack of papers. You know, it actually got done. So I love it how we've got community members, you know, taking the time to write out the full process here of what you need to do. You can also ask them to make sure that they go into Smart Vincent and, pull the price protection with all the incentives and have that sheet because it has a date on it and that they put it in the file, and that could be pretty useful. And so is, of course, I mentioned it already, but I'll just remind you, get a printout of the screenshot of the completed Webdo sheet. So really very good information from a community member, really helping out the community here, and I love to see that. Now for the date, I can't promise you this. This might change. This could be moved around. Don't be upset if it gets moved around, because these things happen. And it's not as if Ford is out there advertising it. I'm just letting our Maverick community know so that you guys can get ready. In case your dealer takes pre-orders, build a 2023 in the system. Have the things that, if they exist, you'd like to have, so that they know and don't forget that if there's an all-wheel drive hybrid, you want it. Or if there's a plug-in front-wheel drive like they have on the Escape, that you want it. Let them know that. Now, it's not the mid-model refresh for the Maverick, so like I've said before, I'd be surprised if we get this for 2024. I expect, I'd expect big news like that to be used to help, if production becomes higher than the demand, that's a great time to drop the type of bombshell where you're like, all-wheel drive hybrid and a front-wheel drive plug-in. And then you get all sorts of, all the YouTube channels are talking Maverick all over again. That is, I think, smart money and, generally how all the companies work. So for 2024, where demand is already still higher than the relatively good production that they're pumping out, they basically doubled production on the Maverick, but they're still missing some. So I still think we're a little ways off for the plug-in and an all-wheel drive hybrid, even though we'd love a hybrid, but a hybrid all-wheel drive. But our front-wheel drive hybrid has been surprisingly fantastic, except in a bad ice storm on summer tires, of course. Had we had winter tires, we would have been fine. So Maverick date, get ready. If your dealer can do a pre-order, good. And if not, it's probably going to be somewhere around. If you want, I'll let you advertise that.
Yeah, it's on July 17. Is that correct? That
Order bank open up date could very well be coming up in roughly a month. And it could also be pushed back. This is sort of just information to dealers saying like, hey, keep an eye on things in the system, because we're going to be sending you information. Learn it, read it, memorize it, practice it, print it out, get ready. So we all know that these dates can be pushed. So that's all I've got to say about that. And for 2024 Ford Maverick, possible changes, what you need to do when you order one up. You need to get that signed purchase offer or signed lease offer, signed order sheet, and make sure they do a COVP order. So make sure that, ask them to send you a proof that it's been COVP'd. You'll get an email anyways. And also ask for, you could ask for the Webdo sheet showing that you're in the Webdo and registered into the Webdo system, that they print off a sheet. They can also even have a confirmation number.
Mm-hmm. That's a good advice.
Now, are there any questions before we get on to the next question, the next episode?
No, I think we're good.
Alrighty, folks, let's move right along. We're about to close up this show, but before we close up this show, a little bit more Maverick information. I can tell you, EcoBoosts are taking a little longer, at least locally for me. EcoBoost orders are taking a little bit longer than they used to. Because, production, they used to be only making about, 30% hybrids. And now 50% of production is for hybrids. So that means, EcoBoosts they're still the fast track to getting one, but it's not as fast of a track. It's not as much of a cheat. Picking EcoBoost isn't as much of a cheat as before. So it is a bit longer to get an EcoBoost now than it was before. But let's hope that the delays on hybrids start to get better, because we faced 18 months and I'm starting to see now more a year and a half for hybrids.
A little better, yeah.
A little better. We're covering out December 2021, and I can tell you that Escape plugin, we've got a slide for that. Nice little Escape. Escapes, whether they're plug-in or not, heck, for a while, Escapes were always 3 to 4 months. Then they went up to about 8 to 10 months, and now because there's a 4 or 5 month period when they just weren't bringing us 2023s. And what's impressive is for the Escape, and this is good potential future news for the Maverick. I'm not seeing issues with batteries because I put in an order for a plug-in Escape June 23rd, and it's already scheduled, and it's going to get built the week of July 31st. That is good, incredible news for the 14.4 kilowatt battery, because the sooner they've got ample 14.4 kilowatt batteries for the Escape, the sooner they can consider putting it in this bad boy. I'd love a plug-in Escape. I just want a plug-in truck or a plug-in Bronco. My dream vehicle is a plug-in Bronco.
Plug-in whatever model.
I want a plug-in off-roader so much that I'm even thinking of going to the dark side and buying a brand new Jeep 4xe as, your vehicle, because, I work at Ford. I'm obviously going to go to work in my own brand.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. But I could always try out a little bit of the dark side. Play around in a Jeep a little. Kind of feel like
I'll need
like
to
cheating.
buy it so your boss won't see it.
And I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go, I have my road, I always have to go through this corner. I always hit it at 65 kilometers an hour. At the top, it's always super bumpy. In the day, I slide across the road by more than 6 inches. And maybe, I know I'm going to slide 6 to 12 inches just because of these bumps and travel because of the front non-independent suspension on the Jeep. It's a big old solid axle. I'm going to slide across the road, get shaken around. I'm going to go, why did I buy this? Because we've almost bought for your vehicle before when we were waiting on the Maverick.
Yeah, we tried one just to check.
4. We almost bought 2 Jeep Gladiators. We almost bought a 2-door Wrangler, and we almost bought a 4-door Wrangler.
That's true,
honey.
but
we almost bought a whole lot of Wranglers,
Yeah.
and every time you're like, "Ooh, I like that," and you're into it.
You only bring one at home a night. But yeah, we
Yes,
saw
I never
a
brought,
lot of them at the
I never
dealer.
brought 2 at home at the same time, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're into vehicles. At least we're not bringing other people into our home.
Yeah,
at night.
we wanted the Jeep for me,
Christian
a
home
used
here.
Jeep for me, while I was waiting for the Maverick, so you could have your Bronco and we can do more video comparing the two of them. That would have been nice.
But I just didn't want to live with the front axle and the tiny little screens, and it felt so outdated. The new 2024 Jeep isn't outdated in regards to screen. It has big screens. You can order it with the winch in the front, and they've got a plug-in version. And there's a tax credit here on that. I'd get a $7,500 tax credit, so it would make for an okay priced lease. Anyways, if you're looking for a truck, my recommendation, Ford F-150 Tremor. We're ordering them up. If it's a 401, I know the scheduling notes say to avoid the 401 and the 402. Tremor. 402, so that's like a Tremor, but it was a Lariat grew into a Tremor. That definite delays, having issues getting those, but we're actually getting a few 401s. The lovely news, wonderful news, Escape plugins getting in relatively quickly, so scheduled super quick. So it makes me think that, if there's enough 14.4 kilowatt batteries going around, maybe they can slide some towards the Bronco, the Ranger, and the Ford Maverick. But we'll have to see when exactly that happens. But we're not talking decades here. We're talking 1 to 5 years. The worst case scenario is that it could take to 2030 for a platform change on the Bronco. But I think that would be worst case scenario is 2030 would be worst case longest date we'd have to wait for in regards to an electric Bronco. All right. 2024 F-150. If you want to see what that's going to look like, well, you're at the right place. 2024 F-150 Bronco. I'm still going to be all about that Tremor. I really hope that they bring the Tremor along. But here's a 2024 Ford F-150 Raptor. And remember, just like when it comes to Shelby products, Shelby always seems to showcase for the Mustang the new sort of where the Mustang look is going. That's at least what we've seen the last couple decades. And we can see that, you know, the light technology that we've got on this behind us, that's probably what we can expect. The bumper, no, because it's a Raptor, and the Raptor always has a unique bumper and grille and hood and side fenders, but at least we can get an idea of what the lights probably are going to look like on the new 2024 F-150. Now it's the new model, right? So this is where we could get some shocking news and find out that there's a plug-in F-150, or really it'd just be nice if instead of a 1.1 kilowatt battery, I think it'd be great if the new 2024, then the power boost is incredible, 570 pound-feet of torque. I don't want to come across as saying I don't like the power boost. I love the power boost. That's the 3.5 liter EcoBoost twin turbo with electric motor. I think it's fantastic. And the fuel economy is incredible in town, and the 1.1 kilowatt battery is enough to help you save 30-40% fuel in town. The power that it adds, 570 pound-feet of torque, is incredible, but it'd be, you know, I'm greedy. I'd like to see even a little bit more fuel economy, so it'd be nice to see that battery size maybe double. And a big change like that, sort of modifications to the powertrain, that can come when you're bringing out the new model. Less likely on a mid-model refresh like the Bronco, or coming up in years to come for the Maverick, maybe 2025 for a Ford Maverick mid-model refresh. But we could see something big like that happen on the F-150. I really like Ford's Raptor styling, but if you don't want to spend Raptor money, go Tremor. But right now on the Ford Ranger, I didn't see any Tremor option. So that made me really like that. I really like the idea of a Ford Ranger Raptor. And I guess I'll announce it. A little personal news on the channel. My Shelby deal fell through. I was all ready for it. Marie kept saying it seemed odd, but there is legalities around that, and the company that owned the vehicle closed, but the same owner then transferred it to his new company, and I was just waiting for the new registration.
Yeah.
But then there was a 10-day period to have proof that the old company that got closed didn't owe anyone money. And I kept waiting, and then I got the bad news that they legally, apparently, either they sold it to someone else who offered them more than asking price, who knows, but they told me that it's because they have to keep the vehicle for a year in case the closed company gets sued. They need to have assets to pay that lawsuit. And since it was a kind of like a car restoration collecting company and, you know, vehicle collection company, well, because they could potentially get sued, they have to keep the vehicle for a year. So I've ordered a Ford Ranger Raptor.
Yeah, because you always need to buy a car.
Well, I was dealing with some pain and sadness.
Poor you.
I got my Shelby taken away from me. I had the window sticker printed off. I had paid for a Carfax, no accident.
And you already sold your Mustang to have the Shelby, so yeah, you said bye.
I was already practicing making Shelby noises, being like, "Oh, the Shelby sounds like this, honey," and making noises with my mouth like a 5-year-old.
He was listening video of the sound of the Shelby when he was eating breakfast for a few days in a row.
It's like my Pump Me Up Rocky soundtrack, you know, like whatever Rocky's listening to, or when Rocky's working out and it's his montage. Some people will listen to those Rocky tracks to pump them up. Well, to pump me up, I was listening to Shelby's driving with the engine. The Voodoo engine's incredible.
But what's sad is I don't understand why a person will put a car for sale if he cannot sell it right now. So yeah.
To break hearts, honey.
That's unfortunate.
To break hearts.
Yeah, only to break your heart. Oh yeah. So yeah, Ranger Raptor. But you know what? I guess you will have much more fun with a Ranger Raptor. because it's all year long. The Shelby, you won't have fun in the snow, and I know the Ranger Raptor, you will use it in the snow a lot.
And the 3-liter Ranger Raptor sounds fantastic. Now, Ford, don't upset me. Give me the 2024. I highly recommend a 2024 Ford Ranger. You're going to have to wait till later on in the year to get the 2.7 liter. We can't, as dealerships, we can't even order it. So you come in and you say, well, you know, put my order in, but don't build it because I want the 2.7 liter. Well, we're confused. We're like, oh, okay, what do we do? You know, if we put the order in, we're worried you might get built. Ford continuously tries to offer me 23s on the websites, and that's just annoying. Give me the easy option to pick 24 because there aren't very many 23s available. We don't have any available, and I just want to build a 2024. And honestly, it was easier buying this vehicle than it is to build it online because I don't want the 23. But this is just a constant problem. All manufacturers have websites that if you're not just at like the right spot, it's annoying to navigate. I could go to Pickup Truck and SUV Talk and get what I want a whole lot easier. So Ford, get different people building your website. It can be delightful at times or very annoying at other times. Winston agrees with me. He's climbing up on me. He knows I'm getting upset. He's here for emotional support. So I guess there'll be no building of a 2024 Ranger Raptor, but we picked green, and basically you just have two choices. You pick whether you want beadlock wheels or non-beadlock wheels, and Marie preferred the look of the beadlock wheels, and to have this go over more easily, I just said, sure, let's go with black mags, honey, if that's what you prefer.
Just because of me, just like that.
Now, Jam Genoa asked an excellent question. You're a fantastic community member, always giving dialogue and information back and forth in the comments section, so I really want to answer your question. We had one allocation, it's probably the only one we'll get for the year, but no one had jumped on it. And you know, I never want to be the Bronco Raptor. Yes, I was very interested, and I didn't want to be the guy that takes it away from someone who hasn't had a Bronco product yet. So I was feeling like when it came to the Bronco Raptor, I said I'll give it 2 weeks, and if no one jumps on it, I will definitely, talk it over with Marie. And we got like 5 orders for the one Bronco Raptor we'll have for the entire year. So I did not jump on it. Now the Bronco Raptor slide, I see we didn't transfer it over, but I guess if I go back to the main one, it'll be in there. All right.
Absolutely. Let's go there. That's the main, no, the main one is there.
Now, a Bronco Raptor is very deceiving. I could tell you that, hey, we got our Ranger Raptor in a quick delay. This was ordered up not that long ago. It took about a year to get in from when it was originally ordered, but it's only because they're first in line out of 5. Guy 5 is going to wait probably 5 years for his Ranger Raptor. So I had easy access to be number 1 on the list for a Bronco Raptor. I just didn't feel it's appropriate. Hey.
And anyway, we were not sure about the look. The big fenders like that, I still look at it and I'm not sure.
I saw them in person and I sat in the vehicle. I walked around the vehicle and there's actual little like metal flake in those fenders. They look pretty cool in person. I agree, they don't look great on these photos, but when you're there in person, I really like how they looked. I don't love them, but I like them. And painted, I think that would actually be pretty cool. Mind you, my favorite fenders are aftermarket fenders, and those are when the whole fender gets replaced and it just pops out. It's all the same bodywork. And I think for 2024 mid-model refresh, I didn't mention it earlier in the live, so it won't be part of the mini episode. So it's a live-only exclusive, but I highly expect fenders to change. Fender look to change for the mid-model refresh. Should have mentioned that. Good point. Now, the easy flex of this thing, this is just parked up on the grass, and look at all the flex between the front wheel and the back wheel.
We see it really good.
So it's not as if it's a tough terrain, it's just a lawn. And you have a huge difference between the front Oh, if you want to just slide over, honey. The front and the back, there's a lot of spacing, and that's because the back axle just such easy flex. Very, very impressed. I'm very impressed with the machine. I do not like it when companies, one of the things that made me less of a Ford guy and very much a Toyota guy in the 2000s as well, because in the 2000s you could go back and get 90s Supras, 90s MR2s, and they were still somewhat reliable then. My MR2s have all been horrifically unreliable pieces of garbage. But, oh, no, Toyota's always the best. Toyota never breaks. No, people talk shit. That's what's always, pardon my language, but that's always what's a guarantee. People talk crap. Yes, in the 90s, you had Toyota Corollas doing 500,000, 600,000 kilometers, 400,000 miles easily without a whole lot of money going into them. But that's not every single Toyota product. The MR2s were just, they leak oil. The alternators break constantly. My Celica alternators broke. My Toyota Camry alternators broke. I'm an ex-Toyota fanboy. My friend in college was actually, no one called him by his name. His name was Toyota Boy. And I was kind of like the Toyota master, even though he was all into mechanics and, really, I believe now he's an engineer. But anyways, Ford had a lot of fake vents on their Mustangs, and it was just a complete bother. And now, look at this. Years later, I'm way more Ford and less Toyota, getting to be more Toyota. They're impressing me. The Tacoma, they did good. They should have thrown on a V6 twin turbo, but they didn't. But anyways, one thing I definitely don't expect for the new Bronco is a 3.5 liter EcoBoost. The reason we won't have a 3.5 liter EcoBoost is because it's hard to fit it in there unless you have quite a bit of modifications. That's not going to happen on a mid-model refresh. That could happen when you completely change the platform, and that's 2023. So a lot of really nice features on the Bronco Raptor. Now, who in the comment section knows what the first cap... Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but actually, I'll let people answer. What is this little box here? We know this is a fog light, but what's going on here? So I'll let the community answer without saying what's going on there. So, very good looking machine. Marie, I know you weren't sure about the grill because you love the original Bronco grill, and that's the whole danger with the 2024 mid-model refresh. You play around with it just a little too much, and you could ruin what people love about the Bronco. Just like you weren't sure that this was a good grill, so we weren't sure if we'd spend extra money to have something that we maybe like less than a Wild Track, but I saw it in person, and the grill's really cool.
Yeah, it's not that bad, but I love the that it was written Bronco on the other ones. This one just Ford. It's like we're losing something, a little pop.
And the fenders, when you see them in person, they're not, quite as, big old police mustache from the 1970s. The running boards are absolutely incredible.
That's great, the running board.
And what this machine can perform is fantastic. And what the Ford Ranger Raptor can perform is fantastic also, because follow the news on Ford Authority and you'll follow the news articles. They did a desert race, and it's a bit of like a marathon race, so it's a bit of a torture test, and they finished 1 hour faster than the record for, publicly available vehicles, non-race vehicles, just vehicles that are, mass market vehicles. So, and the Ranger Raptor does count as a mass market vehicle because with, if every dealership gets on average 1 or 2, well, they'll build, 3,000 to 6,000 Ranger Raptors for this year. So that's still in the mass, what we can call, mass produced. So this thing is going to be continuing to blow away records. They did another race and they also came in first. So very cool. Thank you for pointing out Driven Wild Outdoors, the 14 inches of clearance. Now, if I'm not mistaken, please let us know. Driven Wild Outdoors, are you getting a Ranger Raptor? I think I'm pretty sure you announced it on your channel. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm getting, Dave's always talking about the Ranger Raptor. Obviously, there's something going on.
No,
There's
Dwayne
something
was
special
talking
about
about it
Ranger Raptor.
too.
I think we
I
might end
don't
up
know if he ordered it.
all having a green Ranger Raptor. I think Driven Wild Outdoors, I think.
Oh, he said I backed out.
Oh, okay. But Dave has been talking about a Ranger Raptor now from day one of its announcement. Ali is probably going crazy with him being like, I'm number one for the Ranger Raptor. So he's getting a Ranger Raptor. I think we need to go out to Tennessee to visit him and be like, hey, hey, twinsies.
Yeah, Dark Horse and Ranger Raptor.
Oh,
Dwayne.
cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're getting the Dark Horse. That I was positive about. So you get the Dark Horse Driven Wild Outdoors, Dwayne, instead of the Ranger Raptor.
Dark Horse and Ranger Raptor.
Okay, backed out of both. So we'll be seeing you in a Dodge Ram 1500 sometime soon. That's just a teasing here. So yeah, beautiful Ranger Raptor, and the suspension on this. If someone says, oh well, Ranger Raptor isn't. How's it really different than a Wild Track or a Badlands other than the grille and the fenders? Well, that suspension is the biggest suspension I've seen, period. And we had a 2019 F-150 Raptor, and I thought that suspension was large and in charge. And this is its big brother. Mm-hmm. This is Tony, the big brother to large and in charge. Okay, so that covers what I need.
The sound on the TV.
Now, sorry, folks. That covers what needed to be said about the Ford Ranger. Now, just to wrap up the show, we started off the show talking about, is Ford in a boom, or are they doomed? So, are they doomed or are they in a boom? Now, I'll let you know, and if you want to write this down, this is now the last episode. So, last episode of the night. Ford is going towards a boom. Already, Ford, contrary to everything you'll see on YouTube, Ford is absolutely going towards a successful year. The Ford brand is ranked first in the US market for 2023. But why would a whole lot of YouTubers think that Ford is doomed? Well, because they see F-150s sitting in yards for sale. And they don't, Ford's sending a lot of Sport 302. So you can have a whole bunch of white, gray, black, and one blue, one red Sport 302. And you go back 3 weeks later and you're like, they're the same trucks. They're not selling any. And you feel like you've done your diligent work and you've checked in. You're like, well, I went back, over 2 months. I went back 3 times, and over 2 months, it was always the same vehicles. They're clearly not selling any. And they feel that like, hey, you know what? I'm not crazy. I'm going to make a video saying Ford can't sell any trucks. And look, my eyes don't deceive me. So they go along saying the sky is falling for Ford. But I remember when I was a little kid at the cottage, one of the first books I read was about a dumb chicken that had an acorn fall on its head. And that dumb chicken went around telling all the other animals that the sky was falling. Now, a bunch of animals believe dumb chicken. And, the smarter animals were like, well, that's a dumb chicken. And bigger, smarter animals eat chickens. Well, I'm a chicken eater, but I prefer steak. But hopefully in the future, we won't have chicken or steak taken away from us because for carbon reasons. Well, cows eat grass, and cows don't cause very much pollution at all.
You're getting out of your story.
They go
with
to the bathroom into the water system right beside the water. But in Canada, we have to fence off the water system so that they don't dump in the water. But I will get back on topic. But steak is good, folks, and beef isn't bad. Huge cities where you have, the future of the world, they want to have most everyone living in skyscrapers where you live at the top, you live in the top, you work in the middle, and you've got your stores at the bottom, and you're just stuck to your little 15-minute city. And, they're going to try to sell us on the idea that that's good. Cows are bad for the environment, and that's good for the environment, but cities are horrible for the environment. cities are horrible for the environment. Cows are good. Continue eating steaks, people, and get ready for a fight. Let's fight for our right to eat steak. Now, Ford is on a boom, number one in sales. But Consumer Reports is saying essentially don't buy a 2023 F-150. They're selling, sales are up on the F-150. Sales are great on the F-150. Why is Consumer Reports saying not to buy an F-150? Now, if you want a full fantastic 12-minute story on this, watch Pickup Truck and SUV Talk with Tim Esterdale. He knows what he's talking. He's unbiased, and he's a fantastic YouTuber. Also, I think Dave from All Terrain Nation is a fantastic YouTuber, and Tim Bartz. Those are my regular go-tos. But Tim Esterdale did a great story on this from Pickup Truck and SUV Talk, but essentially Consumer Reports is saying that, the suspension isn't quite as good as the competition, that Dodge is number one on the interior, and their huge number one recommendation is to buy a Dodge Ram, and they're also saying that the Dodge Ram has, is fantastic when it comes to reliability, so they recommend either the Dodge Ram or the Toyota. But we all know that the Toyota, Tim Esterdale said it himself, his Toyota gave him some problems. In their new EcoBoost, they have a 3.5 liter V6 twin turbo engine, just like Ford, and Ford calls it the EcoBoost. So unfortunately, somehow, I don't know how, it's not as if the engines seem the same. Sometimes call it the Toyota EcoBoost engine, but it's Ford's EcoBoost engine, but Toyota also has a V6 twin turbo, and they also offer it as a hybrid with an electric motor. But he had issues. Some people there's a bit of growing pains with that engine, but Consumer Reports is highly recommending it. So what's going on? Let's cover what's going on with what I think is must know, need to know, really need to know information. So a good example is JD Power Vehicle Dependability Study. Why is Lexus number one, followed by Genesis, Kia, Buick, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Toyota? Why is Toyota that low? And why is Hyundai just under Toyota? And how is Mini almost as reliable as a Toyota according to this list? And really, according to this list, Hyundai and Toyota are at 170, claims per 100 vehicles versus Toyota at 168. Odd, okay. Industry average, 186. And we go all the way down and we see Tesla's at 242. They're not last. They just didn't. Okay. They didn't want to fit them in because it's all electric and these others. But anyways, 242. Oh boy, never buy a Tesla. That seems like a lot. No, I think we should consider buying Teslas. I think it's a very interesting product. But Land Rover is last. Lincoln is second last. Audi third last. Ford, then Mercedes, Jaguar, Chrysler, Volkswagen, Volvo, Subaru.
Yeah, like you said, why is Mini so much in the upper list?
Why is Porsche down there? Porsche is well engineered, and they're good vehicles to buy and own.
Yeah, I already told you what I think about it. It always depends on which brand give more money to GD Power.
Now, that's your opinion, and it's an opinion.
We never knew.
I don't agree with it. I don't have any, I would need data to believe that. Thank you, Ford Video Guy, for supporting my rants. And I tell Marie, I'm not going to have a rant this week. I'm going to be good. I'll be a good boy. And then I go on a rant. But how is Dodge? How is Dodge so high, and how is Cadillac so high? Well, here is the beginning of me breaking down, busting this BS. Now, I do have a slide. I took a picture. I even have it in paper form just in case I can't find it again. But I've got this right
There's
here.
A lot of stuff in this computer.
No, that's just for today's show. Yeah, that's just for today's show. So what's funny is in 2019. JD Power Association put Ford in 4th place. Ford was in 4th place. Okay, folks, what has happened since 2019? Has Ford just suddenly started making their engine blocks out of plastic? And we've gone to CVT transmissions to save money, and now we're horribly unreliable? Well, no, Ford still is very allergic to CVT. Anyone that says that the Ford Maverick and Escape and Corsair hybrids have CVT transmissions aren't fully explaining it. Not 99% of YouTube channels, of course not Ford Video Guy, but 99% of YouTube channels will say, oh, but they have a CVT transmission over on Ford on those hybrids. No, it's an eCVT, planetary gear set. I've said it all the time on the channel. I was beating the drum from the very beginning because people were like, oh, don't buy a Maverick because it's not going to be reliable. It's going to have a CVT, mind you, while they drive a Nissan Rogue. So, ha to them. Ford has not changed its powertrain, people. They haven't changed the transmissions. They haven't changed the motors. 2019 Ford is the same Ford as today. So does this mean that all this horrible reliability, second or third last place, Ford must be doomed? They must be just producing a horrible product, is what some people assume. It's what a lot of YouTubers have already jumped on to make a few extra dollars. I'm happy making $20 a video. Some people need to make $2,000 a video to be happy because they don't want to work. They don't want to go up to work and do the regular 9 to 5. Well, I have a regular, 9 to 8 and always answering emails, and I have a business, selling vehicles and servicing people and taking care of people. But that means I work all hours. But Ford has not changed its powertrains, and it doesn't mean that all this unreliability is in the new models. It's not, the Bronco, we each had one, loved them, fantastic. Mm-hmm. I know where I can follow them I know where they are right now, and I know they're still in good condition. They haven't had to go in for any repairs, really. So all Ford's new products aren't problematic. My Lightning isn't problematic. Your Maverick isn't problematic. But guess what? If I were one of the 100 people, this problems per 100 people, if I was quizzed, I would destroy Ford's reputation, because the sample that they take, let's say they take 1,000 people. If I'm one of the 1,000 people for the Lightning, I've brought my Lightning in already twice within the first year, because they're only looking at what happens in the first year of ownership. And if it's not an electric vehicle, they're asking, other than for your oil change, have you had to go to the dealership, or has anything else been done at the dealership while you're the owner? So if you went in for an oil change and they did 2 recalls, that's 2 problems. So where does that bring you on the list? Not 83. 83 means that out of 100 people, only 83 problems were reported. Meaning in those 100 people, some people reported 0 problems and some people reported 1 problem, for an average of 83 points.
And like you said in other videos, company who has a lot of recalls, it didn't mean that it's bad. Sometimes it's just small recalls. It's not the big security one.
There's a Ford Bronco recall, honey, saying that the seatbelt is too far back. So they've recalled it. So a modification can be so that it's easier to reach your seatbelt.
Just to reach it. Okay.
Okay, we're not talking about a bad vehicle here, folks. We're not talking about don't buy a Ford Bronco. Because if you listen to these studies, you're essentially thinking, well, the result of your thinking is, well, I'm not going to buy a Ford Bronco because the seatbelt is hard to get to. Oh, no, wait, Ford did a recall, and now the seatbelt is easier to get to. If you have a Lincoln, they did a recall at one point because the chime for either it was the door open chime or not putting in I think it was the door open chime. After you close it, it's supposed to, it was one of the chimes that's supposed to last a certain amount of time. And they're a fraction of a millisecond, not long enough. So we have to do a recall to add just a little bit of time on that chime so it falls within the National Highway Traffic Safety. Whatever their lettering should be, the severe police. They drive up the cost of vehicles because they oblige. And it can be good to a certain point, but they're always pushing for vehicles to be unbelievably safe. My rant tonight is causing me
Yeah,
to
you're
start losing
losing
my
your
voice.
voice. Yeah, and at the same time, they shouldn't penalize a brand who has a lot of recalls because it just means that they do recalls and not let it go and just shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. And Reggie has a good question here. He said, do you trust GD Power?
That is a good question. I trust them in the sense that how they collect their data is
But they didn't analyze it
no,
that
it's
well.
data. Not all data is built equally because it's all about what data you look at and how you look at the data. So here's the thing. Their data that they're looking at is how many problems per 100 people. So people going in with a problem with their touch screen, it could be that their cell phone Bluetooth is off, but they go, hey, my vehicle isn't communicating with my phone, I've got a problem. That goes into that survey. So it's not that I don't trust JD Power, it's just I see them as a corporation out to make money, just like Consumer Reports, and it's easiest to not have to quantify the quality of the problem. So how much extra money would it take for them to be able to find out, well, did you just go in for a little touchscreen problem because your phone either your Bluetooth on your phone is off or the connection between your phone and your vehicle has, gone bad and you just have to re-upload your phone? Well, it would cost a lot of money to differentiate between those unimportant problems or a very unimportant problem. You go in for a recall for a seatbelt on a Bronco that's hard to reach, or on a Lincoln, a chime that lasted 4.75 seconds instead of 5 seconds exactly, or an airbag that overinflates by, a tenth of a millimeter. And now there's a huge recall, and YouTubers are jumping on the Mavericks are crap bandwagon. Don't ever buy a Maverick because I want to make 2 million views and get paid my $20,000 for a video. Complete sellouts. And it's too bad because in the 70s, if you're a rock band and you sold out, your career was over. You'd get called names. And now if you call people names, at least in Canada, it's a criminal offense. If you hurt someone's feelings in Canada, it's a criminal offense. So, wow, can't wait to move. No, Canada, yeah, I want your political.
Can't wait to
move, or I need to do something about it and get into politics and stop having the political system cater to the weak and force strong people to become mentally weaker and get into this victim. We live in a society that more and more is encouraging people to have an attitude and a psychology and philosophy of a victim. And societies need to help build strong people, not create, promote this victim attitude within society.
And need to be able to continue to eat steak.
That's right. That's right, because bread and sugar will make you depressed, weak, and soft. You are what you eat. You eat soft food, yeah, so eventually will seep into your mind and you end up having a softer psyche. So I think if I keep eating steak, I'll probably stay pretty intense even as I get more gray hairs. So yeah, so to answer, I don't agree with the criteria they're using. Their conclusions, when you're looking at just the final results, look very, very, very convincing. It is very easy to fall into this and say, oh boy, I'm going to shop a Lexus if I want luxury. Mind you, that's actually a good idea. Lexus is a very reliable luxury brand. But Buick for incredible reliability? I'm not sure. Cadillac for incredible reliability? No, the cost of ownership is really high. Very close to Audi prices, which, BMW of, Audi, Mercedes, BMW. I think cost of ownership, I think this type of survey almost needs to be, it's self-serving. It's only serving the people that work there, that get money for, this type of publicity, for putting this type of stuff out, because there's no differentiation between, Dodge Ram's differential and transmission, which are pretty so-so, but Dodge is pretty high. Ram is pretty. Let's see where Ram is according to them. Yeah, Ram's right in the middle.
Just under the average.
Well, Ram traditionally their diffs aren't the best and their transmissions aren't the best, and this type of survey can encourage the company to be like, hey, we've got a pretty decent rating. Let's not go and switch make our transmission and differential more bulletproof, because right now I can safely say a 1500 transmission and differential are absolutely not bulletproof. Some people have really bad luck with them. I know someone that went through three total replacements at the garage between one transmission. I think it was two differentials. So I think what's really important is average cost of ownership. I think what would be interesting is if ever there was a law passed that said that manufacturers have to report repairs, either covered by warranty or not covered by warranty, and then covered by warranty, that there'd be some sort of clause that if companies want to comment on this and make these graphs, that if it's not covered on warranty, it's full value, and if it's covered by warranty, well, as the average, it's only like a quarter of its value. And then we could rank car companies by their cost of ownership. So if the cost of ownership, let's say for 7 years on a BMW, let's throw out a number, is $14,000. And then you see Cadillac at $10,000. And then if you see Ford at $5,500, well, then you're like, that is actually good buying knowledge, buying data that will save you thousands. Because, you no longer look at this list and go, oh, okay, well, a BMW versus, Ford is fourth at the bottom. This makes you think. The normal, natural human conclusion is that owning a BMW is going to be far less costly than owning a Ford. And that's just the biggest load of BS that I've covered in the last 2 years. Since I've had this show, that is the biggest load of BS, that this list is going to make you think that BMW ownership is far less costly than Ford ownership. BMW ownership is more costly than Ford ownership by about double. It's a little more costly than Audi ownership. And Lincoln ownership is actually, in the luxury brands, the cost of owning a Lincoln is very low for a luxury brand. It's up there with, Lexus and Lincoln, the two L's, great luxury brands if you're looking for low cost of ownership. And this list just isn't doing it for me. It upset me quite a bit when I came across this, and I said, you know what, this is a way that I can help our car community here of auto enthusiasts save thousands of dollars. And it doesn't mean that the vehicles at the top of this list are going to cost you a lot. It just means that this list is what I would say, we're looking at actual data, but it's not good data. There's a company, and I'd have to look it up, Vincentric, I believe. Vincentric looks at the cost of ownerships, and I wish that would get pushed, because that is actually helpful data.
Bigger analyze that they did, maybe. Yeah.
They're looking at, what the cost of owning that brand is. And if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I've looked, but I know carrepairbill.com looks at cost of ownership by model. And then they'll actually sometimes have a list, and here's a list of things that you might check. And even though the cost of ownership might only be $900 a year, and you're like, oh, that doesn't seem bad. But then you go down and you're like, oh, okay. Let's say Mercedes 500 SL might have a suspension repair, and it's, let's say $2,000 shock for the job. And you're like, okay, well, $8,000, I'm at this many miles. And then it helps you kind of further your research to then find out, well, I'm shopping a used Mercedes 500 SL. It's at 150,000 kilometers. And the problem for the suspension normally occurs between 120 and 150,000 kilometers. Well, then, you're going to ask that person, do you have the bills to show that you've changed the suspension? And if they say no, well, you automatically tack, let's say, $8,000 onto the price of that vehicle. And you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to buy this vehicle. So that's the type of data that needs to be shared and promoted. So Consumer Reports, though, well, they've put the Dodge Ram in first place, whereas in other years it was much lower. But then, where are all the new mechanics on the Ram? So what they're looking at, they're balancing out quality, the feeling in the ride, handling, comfort of the seats, if the vehicle interior is luxurious or not. So they're really trying to recommend or not recommend vehicles based on all the facets of the vehicle, like the whole walk around. Whereas I would think that when you're buying a vehicle, you subjectively, because we're all, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's what we call as being subjective. I think the best thing is go out and shop your vehicle, draw the vehicles that interest you, test drive them, and then look at cost of ownership. Those are all good criteria for buying a vehicle. And I can tell you cost of ownership on our Fords have always been good, even when I'm playing around with 30-year-old Fords. Fords from 1994, 1995. I generally would own them for a year and a half, sometimes two, switch one little electronic part for $95, another
Doesn't
little
cost that
electronic
much.
part for the biggest part I ever spent was $200. All right, do we have any questions?
No, not for now.
Ceramic coatings at dealerships. I wouldn't spend $2,000 for them. I do really like ceramic detailers, but client made a really good point with me today. He said, I told him, you could wash the vehicle yourself and, buy, a $50, $60 bottle of ceramic detailer, but you'll need to do that every 6 to 12 months. But, your $60 bottle is going to last you your next 7 to 10 years. And he said, one time I washed my vehicle myself and tried to wax it myself and ended up scratching the whole clear coat. And that means he probably went and waxed it when there was a fine little dust on the vehicle. But a spinning, rotating pad on that fine little dust meant he kind of sanded his clear coat. And it made me think, because he was asking me, he was basically saying, hey, could you sell me a ceramic coating for $2,000 and, make a lot of money? And I told him no, because I don't want to make a lot of money if it means you're going to pay a lot of money. I want everything to be fair for everyone. So same thing on this channel. My recommendation is those ceramic coatings that are good for 5 years will make it so that, a lot of dealerships will sell it as you won't get any, some people can interpret it, or it's sold as sort of like a dent or scratch resistant. It'll protect you against rocks. It won't. The only thing that's going to protect you against rocks is a clear wrap. That will protect you against rocks. Stone chips, you get no extra protection by putting a ceramic coating on it. What it does protect you against is when your car is dirty and you wash it. Well, when you do a contact wash, you're going to probably scratch your clear coat. But if you have a ceramic coating that you paid a relatively fair price for, so let's say $1,000, $1,200, sure, if it's good for 5 years. That's not bad, but you have to just be aware that then the goal is just to pressure wash your vehicle, because it's an abrasive adherent. I'm too tired at this point. I'm sorry, folks, but it's going to make it so that dirt doesn't want to stick to your paint. So when you do pressure wash it, almost all the dirt, grime, and filth is going to come off. And sometimes there'll just be very fine particulate left on your vehicle that you really have to put your face into the paint job to see that there's an issue. Especially if your pressure washer shoots out soap, you let it kind of sit there for 3 minutes, then you rinse it off. It'll really help if you have that ceramic coating to get it all off. Now, if you are handy, then you can definitely go with the ceramic detailer, because if you do ceramic detail your vehicle, you can do it at least if it's the ceramic detailer, meaning it's just a spray. It won't make your scratches pop up quite as much, and it's pretty easy to do once a year. If you do it twice a year, you'll have a really beautiful shine to your vehicle, and you're gonna save money. So that's my car maintenance tip of the week, folks. Thank you so much for
That's a good
watching.
one.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you appreciate how shiny our cars are.
Yeah, that's the product I love the most. In all the product we could add or yeah aftermarket.
And we had our dealer. Well, our dealer, Danny, watches the channel. So
Yeah, you
Danny and
did it on my Maverick. Thank you so
I
much,
think,
Danny.
yeah, there you go. Danny Danny probably appreciates you, but Danny watches the show, and I think he gave you that
He
the
knows I
ceramic
don't
detailer
buy
as a
car
little
often
present.
as you, so he helps me because he knows that I will
He-
keep mine longer than yours.
Danny, if you're watching this, you didn't put it on my Lightning, and actually,
No, because you change it too often.
That's what he told me. I'm like, I went down to
Didn't
the
have to do
basement. I'm
it.
like, oh, Danny, could you not bring my vehicle upstairs? Could you just leave it in the basement tonight? When I finish work, I'll spend time putting on the detailer. And he's like, what? There's no need for that. You're going to switch it in 6 months anyways. But I like to keep my paint.
Total loss of time.
I like it to look clean. And when you the goal of paying for a ceramic detailer or a ceramic coating is to have the vehicle stay very clean. Now we've been on for 2 hours. That means All Terrain Nation is on right now. So I've got to close up the show because I want to see you all over at All Terrain Nation. So let's go check out Dave and Kelly. They're going to be talking some Bronco talk, folks. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Bye.
Thank you, Randall Peters. Thank you so much, Ridgeview. Outsider Reviews. Dwayne, thank you very much, folks. Thank you for our members and subscribers.